Alright, so this time we're going to be looking at the STAX L300s, and we're going to be comparing them to the Sennheiser HD800. And keep in mind, these are a non-SDR modded pair. They haven't been modified in any way. They're completely stock, except for this aftermarket cable that I happened to buy it, but that's about it. They're completely stock. So why compare these two? Now, if you look at this in the market space, this thing is worth about 400 new, 300 pre-owned, but it's always usually paired up, bundled with the proprietary quote-unquote energizer needed to power the L300. So in the end, it ends up being more like $700 and $550 pre-owned. These, on the flip side, you can't find them brand new anymore. They've been discontinued, but you can find them pre-owned for about 700, 800, even 650, even 650 if you are lucky. So I figured these two were in a similar price point where you can just compare the two and decide which of the two you really wanted and which would be better for your use case. So let's just not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get right down to it. Although it is hard to find these brand new anymore, it does come with a display box. Display box is pretty nice. Kind of hard to get this in frame, but if you can see it, it is a very nice display box. Mine's kind of frayed and old already, but when you open it up, it has this nice velour texture inside, and it does have that cable to hold it in place so that it doesn't just keep folding backwards. So it's a very nice display box, and it is deep enough yet open enough where you can just pretty much just lay down any headphone you want in here and have it displayed. And then if you want to close it, this lid right here is a soft plushy material, so you can just go ahead and close that, and bam. If anything, like the cables would probably just stick out like that, but that's about it. It's a very nice display box. Also comes with a cardboard outer box that obviously would have the logo of the HD800 and whatnot. It would also come with the manual for how to operate headphones, because I'm sure you aren't smart enough to know how headphones operate. So Sennheiser's nice enough to tell you. And also the Sennheiser branded single-ended cable. They do include this. So as you can see, it's all black. It has a Sennheiser brand right here. And I wouldn't exactly call this a quote-unquote nice cable, even though it's not a terrible cable. But this thing is so damn thick. It's like a vacuum cleaner. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. But it is what it is. It comes with a cable, and it'll last you. On the flip side, the L300 come with a variety of things, as they are usually sold as a combo unit, consisting of the L300, the SRM252S electrostatic energizer. Also included is the STAX branded 100-volt transformer, which should not be used in the US, by the way. You'll have to purchase a replacement, such as the one on screen right now. A proper transformer to use these in the US is one that is pulling 110 to 120 volts and has a reverse polarity, as in the positive pole on the outer ring and the negative pole in the inner ring. More details on that in the L300's individual review. So go ahead and head to that in my channel. They might also include a short pair of RCA cables to connect your existing chain to the 252S. Very considerate of them. Very nice. Now, as far as the build quality is concerned, absolutely no contest. The HD800s definitely beat out the L300 by a lot. I mean, the L300s are made out of a very cheap plastic that can definitely be seen as delicate in every way. They creak a bit with every movement. If you want to go ahead and listen, I'll go ahead and there you go. Yeah, they definitely creak. The suspension strap is made out of a simple cloth-like material. I will say, though, it is quite effective, but it's made out of cloth. The top and sides of the headband are made out of a cheap matte plastic, and as you can see, it's branded STAX. The cups themselves, that really look like fly swatters, are made out of a glossy plastic and sound like this. To top it off, the L300's cable is non-removable, as you can see there. The type of connector on the L300 is a proprietary connector that can only be used on a STAX Energizer or a third-party Energizer that supports this type of plug. Now, the HD800 are mostly made of plastic, although this plastic feels very high quality and robust. The top of the headband is made of metal, while the opposite portion, the one that makes contact with the top of your head, is a very spongy foam material. Very nice though. Very, very nice. Very nice. Check it out. Metal. Now the cups themselves are massive and made of mostly plastic. Yeah, I know this looks silver, but trust me, it's not. It's just a very, very deceivingly nice plastic. It is nice. I'm not, like, it doesn't feel like it's gonna break anytime soon, but these things look like they're made 100% of metal in the cup area, but it's not. Just wanted to point that out. As I mentioned before, the connector that comes with the HD800's cable is a single-ended 1/4" connector. This means it can be used on any solid-state or tube amplifier with ease. Now, as far as the comfort is concerned, despite what you may think, I'm going to give this one to the L300s. Because of the fact that the L300s are incredibly hollow and plasticky, they are incredibly lightweight. Now couple that with their slightly loose clamp force, and they offer just the right amount of security, without ever feeling like they're going to fall off. Honestly, the heaviest part of the L300s would honestly just be the thick cable. This is honestly the thickest part of the headphone right here, believe it or not. Although the HD800 have those massive cups and are still a lightweight headphone in the grand scheme of things, their lack of clamp force with the stock pads make for a very comfortable experience, but prevents you from tilting your head in any way. Like, you gotta stay looking straight. If you start to look down a bit, your head's they're gonna slide off your head. You're gonna have to readjust. Either way, I can wear both for quite some time. They're both really great options. As far as sound is concerned, for the sake of testing, I decided to compare these completely stock, despite the fact that I use these with some minor EQ applied, and I'm talking about both of them. So, in the bass department, the winner is the HD800, and here's the thing. They both belong in the same bracket, bass light. The HD800 are on the lower side of things when it comes to the bass. However, its bass extension is incredible, especially for a dynamic headphone. It can go deep enough, even deeper if minor EQ is applied for those EDM tracks, trust me. Now, generally speaking, the bass of the HD800 is thinner, but it's more complete. The bass on the L300s on the flip side is a tad different. There's practically no sub-bass to speak of. There's a tiny bit with some minor EQ. However, these do have a bit of a hump in the mid-bass, and still remaining on the somewhat neutral side of things, but just a bit forward on the mid-bass there. Generally speaking, the bass of the L300 is somewhat woolly and more solid. The mid-bass was overwhelming only like 2% of the time, and that's only if you're a really, really picky person. As far as mids are concerned, the L300s take the cake actually. Now, the HD800s offer more forward vocals, but they can be a bit too strident for my liking. The L300s on the flip side offer vocals that are still quite forward and easily discernible, but they are more lush and comfortable without omitting any details. Perhaps you can consider them to be a bit more forgiving with less than perfect recordings. Compared to the HD800s, the L300s offer a more natural sounding timbre to my ears. Every instrument just sounds more enjoyable and lush somehow, just more correct in the mids. However, the cello does sound faster, cleaner, and more detailed on the HD800. Now let's jump into the treble. The winner here, it depends. Look, both are treble-heavy cans, no doubt about it. However, they each do this in different ways. The HD800 are treble heavy, but this is mostly due to a couple of spikes around the 6K and 10K areas. The L300 are also treble heavy, but they are forward for the majority of the treble response. Also, the L300's treble response is more snappy and crisp, while the HD800's is a bit more relaxed. So for my listening, and the sake of my own ears, this is why I cannot listen to these for personal enjoyment unless I apply some EQ to them. More on that in the notes and observation section. As far as soundstage is concerned, do you really need to ask? Do you really need to ask? The HD800 are famous for having the widest soundstage that a headphone has to offer, period. Like, I can attest to that. They do. Although having the widest soundstage isn't everything, it is an important factor that can affect every other part of the headphone's sound. Now, the L300 soundstage is more on the average to narrow side, but it does not disappoint either. As far as imaging is concerned, I gave these to the L300 just by a bit. Like these, they really compete neck and neck for that imaging trophy. They do. In some tracks, one outshone the other by a smidge. Like, I'll give you an example. City to City by Zomboy featuring Bell Humble. The floating sound at the intro was slightly easier to follow on the HD800 than the L300s. Let me be a little more specific here. So there's a floating sound that kind of goes left, right, and then kind of left, and then comes back left, and then goes right, and then it ends right there, you know, when the intro ends. Another example, Hotel California by the Eagles. You know this one. You know this one, Boomer. These two were really close, but the L300s had a smidge extra imaging capabilities with the airplane noise at the minute 20, and then the percussion at 350. So the airplane noise is kind of heard here on the right side, and you can kind of hear it rising through the top like that, and then ending closely towards the center, before it ends up kind of just coming over this side in the background and just kind of fades away after that. So this rise right here is more easily trackable on the L300s. And also the percussion when it goes like from here, and then like that at minute 350. Now for the notes and observations portion. As I mentioned before, I generally dislike these two without the use of some EQ. That said, EQ really changes my perspective on these. So I'll go ahead and insert my EQ settings on screen here. These are the settings I use when doing personal listening to these. With the EQ applied on the HD800, they still remain on the bright side, but the peaks are mostly reduced and the treble becomes a bit smoother. Now you can further reduce the treble by a couple more decibels if you find it necessary, but I personally don't. I like I said before, I like fixing them to the point where they still retain their natural character, but where they're not annoying with their imperfections anymore. So no, they're not. I don't keep them at a neutral volume, but I don't keep them at an overly bright, which is their stock profile sound. The increase at 30 Hz only affects the EDM tracks such as City to City and makes them more enjoyable. So definitely a pro there. And because of the ridiculously low bass extension on the HD800s, it only makes it more apparent without, again, ruining the rest of the frequency. Now with the EQ applied on the L300s, they are still bright, but they're more controlled. However, they still remain too bright for my tastes, forcing me to return the volume down a smidge on the most treble-heavy of tracks, such as City to City. If I further reduce the treble at those particular points, I find that it simply causes the L300 to lose their character. Like they no longer sound like the L300, and that no longer makes them special, if that makes any sense. They just become, you know, one of the rest. Conclusion time. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. The L300s really are a special piece of audio. They are. And they have a special place in my heart. But only in certain situations. While they shine at their best, they just disappoint at their worst. Like, On the other hand, the HD800 fill that niche of being a bright and analytical headphone while still appealing to a wider variety of genres. So without EQ applied, I might just go for the L300s, honestly. But when you introduce that little bit of EQ into the equation, no doubt, HD800s, hands down. Now, additionally, the fact that you can mix up your listening experience with the L300s by going single-ended, balanced, and tube amp, which is a very popular option, really makes them the more versatile option of the two. So yeah, that's gonna end it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, I can't exactly put Amazon links to these because these are only sold in Japan and these are discontinued. But yeah, I am affiliated with Amazon again. So if you do want to purchase one of these two products or products in the near future, go ahead and use my link because it's going to help me out a bit and I'd really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to check out the Patreon. And yeah, if you have any comments, go ahead and leave them down below. Ask any questions and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next one.